Welcome to the October edition of the Takoma Coffee House, where in the next hour, you'll meet the next mayor of Takoma Park. Both candidates are with us on Coffee House Forum. Then Takoma Voice publisher Eric Bond looks inside the Gazette newspaper chain's new Takoma Park edition. On In Sickness and in Health, the uses and possible abuses of hypnosis as a medical treatment. Also, poet Rose Solari offers an elegy for the five-sided box, followed by the Celtic African sounds of Bagpipes and Beyond on musical traditions. We'll survey what's hot in video rentals and book sales, and Howard Cohen returns for a conversation about adult sports and community building on Body and Soul. Hi, and welcome to Coffee House Forum. There'll be a new mayor in Takoma Park starting next month. Three-term incumbent Ed Sharp says he won't seek re-election on November 4th. So unless voters ignore Mayor Ed's wishes and write in his name en masse, one of the people sitting with me right now will be the mayor of Takoma Park for the next 2 years. Who are they, and where would they like to lead Takoma Park? Rudy Arredondo is a civil rights activist, a one-time farm laborer, and a former organizer for the United Farm Workers of America. A native of Mexico, Rudy grew up in South Texas, followed the crops northward to the Buckeye State, where he graduated from the Northwest Ohio Community College. He moved to the Washington area in 1974, and he's resided in Takoma Park since 1978. Rudy is active in the Democratic Party and co-founded the Hispanic Democratic Club of Montgomery. He's also a board member of the Takoma Arts Guild, a co-founder and performer at the Takoma Park Folk Festival, and has been a leader in a number of other citizen and civic organizations. Rudy was formally nominated for mayor at the nominating caucus on September 30th by attorney and activist Tom Gagliardo.
And Rudy is the kind of guy that no matter how obscure the cause, he's there. He's there because he cares. He's there because he knows how important it is for people to rise and become participating and full beneficiaries of our community.
That was Tom Gagliardo's pitch for Rudy Arredondo. Cathy Porter has been a council member in Takoma Park since 1991 and is a former president of the South of Sligo Citizens Association. For the past 2 years, Cathy has served on the board of the Metropolitan Washington Regional Transportation Planning Board, and she currently sits on the board of the Metropolitan Washington Air Quality Committee. Since 1985, Cathy has been the research director for the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, a nonprofit that focuses on public policies affecting low and moderate income Americans. She earned her bachelor's degree from Radcliffe College and her Master of Public Administration degree from Harvard's Kennedy School in 1982. Cathy was formally nominated for mayor by outgoing mayor Ed Sharp.
Cathy is always prepared for council meetings. She reads the material. This is not a trivial point, given the volume of reading matter that she picks up at City Hall. She actively seeks out additional information when she thinks it's needed, and she will take the lead in drafting alternatives to the options that we have in front of us. The point is, she is concerned with making the council work, and she is effective in getting things accomplished.
Welcome Cathy Porter and Rudy Arredondo to the Takoma Coffee House.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. First off, I'm wondering, does it really matter who's elected mayor of Takoma Park? It's a city manager system. The mayor is really simply a member of council, albeit elected at large. The mayor, I guess, organizes the council meetings, but has no executive authority, no veto power. In what sense, apart from ceremonial, does it really matter?
Well, I think the mayor is very important because the mayor really sets the agenda, both in a literal sense of actually setting the agenda items for the council, but in a more important sense, I think the mayor really sets the agenda for the council. It's up to the mayor to sort of have the vision for what's happening in Takoma Park and to see where the city's going and to decide how the council needs to approach those issues. So I think it is very important who's mayor of Takoma Park.
Rudy?
Well, one of the things that I want to do is I feel that it's important. I want to change the charter whereby the mayor truly has a role outside of just a front man for the council. I think it's important to, and it's very unfair to let the staff actually take responsibility for the decisions which the leadership ought to be taking. And I think the elected officials ought to be accountable and responsible for the administration of the city.
So you'd like to see the mayor have more executive authority?
Absolutely. I would like to do that, yes.
Well, the mayor and council system that we have set up now is the mayor and council have responsibility for setting policies for the city of Takoma Park, and the staff is charged with carrying out those policies. I agree completely with Rudy. I think that the mayor and council are the people who have to be accountable to the voters of Takoma Park, and I certainly hope we are accountable to the voters of Takoma Park. But I think that you have to make a distinction between setting the policy and setting the direction for the city and actually carrying out the day-to-day administration of the city, which I think we have a very fine group of staff members who do that for Takoma Park.
Are you equally satisfied with the job that the city administration is doing?
No, I feel that there's far too much responsibility placed on the staff with regard, and they ought to be the implementers, but I feel that the mayor, being the chief executive for the city, ought to be able to exercise a kind of leadership and vision to ensure that the staff is nothing more than administrator. I find that the administrator has far too much responsibility and power with regard to the actual allocation of resources, recommendations which the council and the mayor truly don't have a lot of time to look into what is going on in there. I mean, they do a good job as much time as is permitted by being part-time political leaders in the city.
Let me ask you a question. It occurs to me that you two in some ways are kind of the yin and yang of Takoma Park politics. Rudy, you come from a kind of up from the bottom background. You have a lot of fire and spirit, grassroots community organizing background, and a legacy I think that you carry from the Sammy Abbott period of real kind of firebrand politics in Takoma Park, and in a period in which the very idea of unification was put on the plate but not realized. Cathy, on the other hand, you come from maybe a more subdued, professional, yet progressive approach to politics, one in which you've been organizing within the system for many years, a tenacious reputation for getting things done, and a connection to the legacy perhaps of Ed Sharp, who although is not seen as an inspiring figure, was nonetheless the person who was able to see unification through. Do you think that's a fair representation of maybe the different flavor that each of you brings to this campaign, Rudy?
Perhaps that's correct. I do. I mean, the kind of work that I've done over the past 25 years in my career in terms of public service has definitely been at the grassroots level in terms of devising strategy in order to be able to ensure that low-income housing, rural economic development, especially for rural low-income individuals who have minimal political clout, that includes in terms of coming all the way from the Congress all the way down to the City Council. It's important to prod and ensure that those strategies are successful because we're talking about a very vulnerable populace. So in that sense, you're correct.
Cathy?
Well, at least you didn't call me a technocrat, and I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you. I think what I've done is actually used the skills that I've got. I'm a researcher by profession, but I've also always been an advocate. I've spent my entire professional career working for the cause of economic justice. The organization I currently work for does research and pushes for changes both at the federal level and at the state level for low-income people. I've worked on the food stamp program. I've advocated for people in welfare programs, for employment programs, for moms on welfare, and that's been a very important part of what I've done. The other thing that I've done that you didn't mention is I've also been a feminist and an activist all my life, and started off with the Women's Political Caucus and working for equal rights for women. So those have sort of been the two strains that I've been most interested in.
What issues do you want Takomans to consider during this campaign for mayor?
Well, I think clearly an important issue is public safety. I think that one of the things that I've really been trying to focus on and get people to talk about in this political season, when more people are interested in these issues than they will be again for another 2 years, to think about our police department, to think about how we invest in our police department, what we get from it. I think we really need to do a long-term look at the police department, looking at pay and benefits, looking at the kinds of services we get, For example, I think we ought to look at improving the technology that we offer our police officers to keep them out on the street and make it so they don't have to keep coming back to the station to check records and to do paperwork. I think we can get much better coverage on the streets by using some new technology. I'd also like to take a look at paraprofessional police officers. Some communities have police officers that are not full professional police officers. They can do many things like traffic enforcement, very important issue in Takoma Park. They could also do things like take reports for burglaries and things where they're not having to actually arrest someone. That's another thing I think we should look at. But fundamentally, I think we've got to take a top-to-bottom look at the police department, how we invest our resources, and if it turns out that we need to put more resources into our police department to get a better quality of service, then we're going to need to think about that. And I'm being quite upfront with people and quite frank. This may mean more resources for the police department, but I want us to start thinking about that now because it's something that's going to be a real important issue down the road.
Rudy?
Well, I'm very concerned about the police department. Obviously, I'm concerned that we have not resolved yet in terms they still don't have a contract. I work closely with them, and they've indicated their dissatisfaction with working conditions. And those are basic issues in terms of if you're going to have an effective police department, then they have to be satisfied. I want to also do a top-to-bottom review of not just the police department, but all city-run programs. I'm not sure that we're doing the best how we're spending our resources. And so it's important to look at how we are setting priorities. The other thing that I'm very concerned about is our tax base. I work very closely with the business community and have seen a tremendous amount of business under stress. And that's our tax base. We have to nurture it. We have to stabilize it. And we need also to look at what we're going to do with the next 20 years. We need to develop a plan by which we can ensure that our children have the necessary resources for their education. True, we don't have that as a part of our budget, but we need to be sure to influence Montgomery County in ensuring that we get the largest amount of resources necessary. We're all kind of being shortchanged by both Prince George and Montgomery County. That has to change.
I agree completely that education, and that's actually the other big issue that I've been talking about in my campaign is education. As a council member, I've been very active on the Prince George's County side, bringing together parents and school administrators and politicians to do a major renovation of Carroll Highlands Elementary School. Of all the things that have happened during my council term, that's one of the things that I'm most proud of. It took a lot of people working together to get it done, and I'm really pleased with the new renovated school we've got.
Amazingly enough, we're almost out of time, so I want to give you both a chance to say in 20 seconds or so what legacy you want to leave Takoma Park after your 2 years as Mayor Rudy Arredondo.
Well, I want to ensure that we have a very solid tax base of revenue to ensure that we're going to be having a lot of development coming in, emanating from Silver Spring, and from our own economic development work plan that I plan to put in progress. And so, that it be a safe community, that the influences of the criminal element in the surrounding jurisdictions, we have to deal with that. Okay. And
I'd like people to say after my term as mayor that Takoma Park is a community where they feel free to walk the streets at night in safety, where they feel that their children are getting the best possible education, and where they feel that everybody in the city, no matter what their background, is free to participate fully as citizens in the community.
The election is November 4th. There's only one polling place. That's the Municipal Building on Maple Avenue. Tacoma residents can cast a vote for mayor and council anytime on the 4th between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. The winner in the mayor's race, one of these two folks, takes office on November 17th. Till next time, and even thereafter, I'm Mark Cohen for Coffee House Forum. Coming up, Breaking Bad Health Habits Through Hypnosis, a poem by Rose Solari, African drums meet Highland bagpipes, what Takoma is reading and watching, And don't let kids have all the fun. A look at adult sports. But first, Eric Bond asks your vote for an independent voice.
From Takoma Park's earliest days, when residents numbered in the hundreds, there's been a hometown newspaper. Here at The Voice, we feel very strongly about the role of a free press in our town, and we are committed to giving voice to the many opinions which form this idea we call Takoma Park. This month, a new newspaper arrived in Takoma Park, one of a chain of Gazette newspapers owned by the Washington Post. With the Post's $400 million revenues, there can be no healthy competition between the Gazette chain and The Voice. During a recent interview, the managing editor of the South County Gazette papers characterized the arrival of the Gazette as the beginning of, quote, a newspaper war. A declaration of war between such financially unequal opponents illustrates an alarming trend in modern journalism, in which conglomerate marketing interests overshadow community voices. We'd like to believe that the Gazette won't practice predatory discounting of ad prices. We'd like to believe that the Gazette will not drink from the bottomless trough of the Washington Post to sustain its presence in Takoma Park. But indications across the country show that when a large newspaper conglomerate enters the arena, the smaller papers often cannot compete or survive. Because of Takoma Park's passion for individuality, I do not believe that the boilerplate design of the Gazette poses any real threat to the Takoma Voice. The Gazettes are a Washington Post advertising chain, not a hometown newspaper. We're determined to stay, and we renew our commitment to you as we begin our second decade of publishing Takoma Park's independent newspaper. Thank you.
Say hypnosis, and it may conjure the image of a Rasputin look-alike swinging a pocket watch, manipulating a dazed member of a TV talk show audience to act like a frazzled chicken. But by medical definition, hypnosis is an artificially induced trance-like state in which the mind is more than usually receptive to suggestion, and memories of the past events, apparently forgotten, may be elicited by questioning. Hypnosis can be used in medicine for a variety of purposes, from treatment of addictions to psychotherapy. Here with us to discuss the uses and possible abuses of hypnotherapy are clinical hypnotist Laura Rodriguez Archila of Silver Spring and psychologist Robert Anderson of Takoma Park. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Cathy.
Laura, you practice a certain specialty of hypnotism. Would you like to explain what you do?
Yes, I focus on 4 major areas. Stress management, that's a big issue these days in our life and our hectic lives. Weight control, weight reduction, smoking cessation, and also performance, enhancing performance.
And Robert, you practice it as part of your work as a psychologist. Would you like to explain how you use it?
Well, it's used in a variety of ways. To get lost memories is one way to use it. Phobias, to take care of phobias. Medical practices as well, things like working with folks who are in the last stages of disease, helping them through that sort of thing, relaxing them, helping them breathe better. But there are a variety of uses and abuses of hypnosis.
What exactly goes on during a hypnosis session? What's the way you get people to go under?
How do I get people to go under? Usually I use a progressive relaxation model, which allows people to relax different parts of their body, focusing on parts of their body as we go, focusing on their breathing as well, and then deepening techniques which allow them to, I will count backwards with them. But it's important to realize that hypnosis is always self-hypnosis. I'm just saying some words. The people are really the ones who are doing the work.
And Laura, how long does it usually take to put people into a hypnotic trance?
Well, it can vary. You can put a person in very quickly, though I usually use a progressive relaxation of some form. It can take a minute, you can take 10 minutes. It depends on the issue I'm working with. If I'm working with someone who's very stressed, very frazzled, then I like to use the longer progressive relaxation because I want them to really relax and learn what it feels like to be relaxed. And other situations may call for a different procedure. But the key thing is to get the person relaxed not only physically but also mentally and emotionally so that they become receptive to the suggestions that we're giving them to create whatever change it is or helping them whether with pain as Robert does.
So progressive relaxation, for example, would that be taking deep breaths, trying to calm them down by touching, or just, for example, is it through breathing? And
well, I start my clients with 3 deep breaths, inhaling through their nose, holding, and then exhaling, and then I have them focus on the natural rhythm of their breathing. And then I just make a variety of suggestions, whether it's going through different parts of their body or taking them to a place that's particular to them where they enjoy relaxing, whether it's the beach, whatever they find appealing, and getting them into a very relaxed state so they feel calm and they're just progressively relaxing more and more.
so it sounds a relaxing experience overall, rather than anything like going to the dentist. Certainly far strike from that. There are some dangers to hypnosis. On the whole, people can go into trances and come out of it, benefit from it, but would you like to explain some of the possible dangers?
Sure, and I want to also explain that hypnosis isn't a treatment. Hypnosis is a vehicle. It's a tool in a treatment modality. In most situations, most people get along very well, but sometimes there are thoughts, feelings that are dredged up from the subconscious or unconscious, whatever those things may be. And you may have what's called an abreaction, which is an immediate discharge of emotions, and people don't know how to handle that. And it's important that you have someone with you who can work you through that if indeed that happens. Or other kinds of memories. For instance, I was doing one stress management workshop with a number of people involved, and afterwards a woman came up to me and said, you know, I realized through that relaxation that my mother didn't raise me. I really raised myself. I was really alone, which was a pretty powerful statement for just a relaxation kind of situation. And I talked with her and she was okay, and I kept in contact with her for a few weeks. But for situations like that, when they occur, you want to be with someone who does have training beyond just the hypnosis.
And then would you use hypnosis to continue with that, or would you use other forms of psychotherapy?
I think in her case I would have used other forms of psychotherapy, just talking through, because the problem, the issue, had already surfaced. So it was just time to move with that.
Laura, if you saw someone getting into danger, how would you bring them out of it?
What I would do is, the technique that I've been taught is to have them breathe in deeply, and I would suggest to them that the scene fades and they tend to their breathing. And that's how I've been trained to. And I haven't had that happen yet. I mean, I've had people where I've noticed changes occurring. For example, I was working with a client on a particular issue, and I could see there was something going on there. And he was already seeing a therapist for another issue. So I just gently just make sure they stay relaxed and calm, and I shift the focus to something else.
So the danger really is in the hands of people who don't know what they're doing properly. You should go to somebody who's trained to do hypnosis, to do hypnotherapy as part of psychology.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you do need to be able to handle that situation, because during hypnosis you are accessing parts of the subconscious, or things are being brought up. And as Robert said, when you're in that relaxed state, a person may have an issue that's been brewing in the subconscious, and that can happen. I've had that happen in an audience where a woman said, I was just doing a relaxation process where she felt tears coming. So I knew that that was an example of a milder abreaction.
There have been a lot of abuses of hypnosis over the years. You mentioned that. Can you describe some of them, I suppose, from talk shows and people being made to act ridiculous? Does this still go on a lot?
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, let me talk to you a little bit about stage hypnosis, because that's what people, for the most part, understand when they talk about hypnosis. You see someone acting foolish up on stage, and you think that the hypnotist has this great power over you, and that's not true at all. In a stage hypnotist situation, you have people in an audience who volunteer, and when people in the audience volunteer, they know right away what the stage hypnotist is going to do. He's going to make a fool of them. So what they're doing is beginning the contract with the hypnotist that I will be a fool on stage for you. And then what he does is he culls that audience and those people more and more and more till he gets the 5 or 6 or 7 most suggestible people, and then has them do things, and then they can go back to their friends and say, did you see me? He made me do all that, which it isn't true at all, because people have the options when they're hypnotized. They can think, they can feel, they have all their abilities with them, and if they don't want to do something, they don't. And as a matter of fact, the literature points to the fact that you can't make people do things that they don't want to do under hypnosis.
Does that in fact lead to the case where some people who are still retain the fear of hypnosis refuse to be hypnotized even though they're coming to see you for that very purpose?
Well, that's why I often I go through a full explanation when I see clients. I spend about half an hour educating an overview of hypnosis. And in public presentations, I bring out that point, is that the subconscious mind is a protective mechanism, and in hypnosis, all your senses are heightened. So you're actually less likely, unless a hypnotist, an unethical hypnotist, was trying to pull something on you, you're less likely to be duped or controlled, because you really are on alert. So as I agree with Robert, the people who are going up on stage with those for stage hypnosis want to act out. There's a part of them that wants to do that, and that's why they fulfill the contract. But there really are very few dangers as far as, you are self-hypnotizing yourself. The hypnotist or the psychologist conducting hypnosis is the guide, and guiding the person into that state.
Robert, have you found that women are easier to hypnotize than men, younger people than women? Are there any characteristics, or is it just a mishmash?
There are some differences. It's mostly a mishmash, but one of the stereotypes is women are easier to hypnotize than men. That hasn't proven to be true. Usually younger people, most hypnotizable people are between the ages of 15 and 22. That's the most. That means that people older and younger, of course, can be hypnotized, but usually kids under 5 or 6 have difficult time because they don't have the verbal capacity to understand. And then things seem to get decreasingly hypnotizable until elderly. There are some careers, as a matter of fact, some college majors. Liberal arts students, for instance, are more hypnotizable than business students, engineering students. And the question is it the training in their major, or is it the personality that they bring to the major and choose that makes that decision? But racially, people are hypnotizable across race. And as a matter of fact, people with higher IQs tend to be more hypnotizable than people who are less intelligent. Although there's an area which is sufficient IQ, maybe around 115, 120, as in creativity.
Laura, have you found some types of people easier than others to hypnotize?
Well, people surprise me. I've had people come in for the first time and just almost go into a coma state. Mm-hmm. And I've had others who I could tell were more nervous in general, or feeling, just feeling that they weren't hypnotizable, although I try to explain exactly how that works. And I agree with Robert. People who tend to be analytical, analyzing everything, will take longer, or may take longer, to allow themselves, because they're questioning everything as they go along. And so you sometimes find you have to use confusion techniques to get them to relax and distract them from that analysis. But I haven't found huge differences, but it just really varies. I haven't found any commonalities between men or women or anything distinctive, but I do believe that the professions can have an influence.
Briefly, because we're running out of time here, is the cost something that, can you just have one session that's enough, or do you need more?
That all depends on the issue. It all depends on the person, and it's always individual. Whenever you're dealing with people and problems. 1 to 20 maybe. Yeah, I would like to think it's fewer, because the purpose is to teach people self-hypnosis and to help them move on so that they can use it for themselves.
Thank you. Well, we're out of time so quickly today. This has been Spellbinding. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait for another time to continue. A big thank you to Laura Rodriguez Archila and Robert Anderson for their entrancing comments on this valuable medical technique. In sickness and in health, I'm Cathy Kristiansen.
Still to come, the most unusual band you've seen in a long time, Bagpipes and Beyond, and Sports After 40. But first, Rose Solari offers an elegy for the five-sided box.
I'm Rose Solari, and I'm going to read a poem called Elegy for the Five-Sided Box. It was only 4 months, the whole of one long winter, that he stayed with me. I thought to make his body the place I'd store myself. On mornings so cold and dark that neither of us could rise at the clock's first ring, we lingered, holding each other beneath warm pockets of sheets. Or I held him. I don't know what he thought he'd wrapped his arms around. And I don't know when I began to gather his fallen hairs into the 5-sided paper box another lover had used to give me a pair of dangling rhinestone earrings many years in the past. I found the first strand on the pillow, saved it as a whim. And then there were others, trapped on the sink's ledge, caught between pages of a book, snagged on the door frame, hooked on the edge of a stereo speaker. Everywhere, the corners of my house offered up the idea of him. Red-brown, longer than I'd imagined, straight as a line. Trying to fit them into that box became a game, became my work. Hair doesn't fold, sticks to the fingers, won't stay in place. I would pack the fine strands in tight and close the lid, only to see them spidering out. I tried tying them into knots to keep them gathered and in place. I weighed them down after a while with little stones. When I was a girl, my mother kept, tucked in the corner of her jewelry box, a brooch made of fine black ropey stuff I'd never seen in any jewelry store. When I asked her what it was, she said a mourning pin made from some dead person's hair. It frightened me even then to imagine a woman, and more, a woman of my family, sitting for hours braiding the hair of her lost friend or spouse or lover into the shape that lay on thin fake velvet, a double interlocking oval, almost a heart. I never saw my mother wear it, and when she was gone, I did not ask where it had gone. When he left, lost to the warmer weather with only words for reasons and not much of them, I found myself one morning crouched beside the bed, scanning the carpet for more hairs. I guess you could say I scared myself. So I put an end to what he'd been to me by burning in a small cast iron pot the box of hair. The box burned quickly, its painted pattern, either arrows or strands of wheat, I was never sure, dissolved in flames so blue their innocence hurt. His pain a 5-sided story, he told himself, to stay warm at night. My body the vehicle that carried him, for a time, back into himself. Hair smells awful when it burns, as if complaining of the indignity of flame that rises, hopeless, that sings its own pure song regardless of whatever it is it swallows. I pulled a strand from my own head and burned that, too.
Hi, David.
I'm David Eisner, and this is the musical traditions portion of the program. And what the heck was that I just saw?
That was Bagpipes and Beyond.
Oh, that's good. Right on cue. Right on cue. Well, she kept trying to step on the swords and never got them. She kept missing.
That's an old sword dance.
We've been working on that.
Yeah. The trick is not to step on the sword and keep playing. Even if she does step on the sword, we just keep playing. We incorporate the drums to keep the rhythm.
Through anything.
Yes.
Now, I've, of course, seen and heard bagpipes before. I've seen and heard African djembes and doumbeks, but not with a woman dancing around a sword and in the same group. How did this come about?
We were thinking one time.
I mean, it's just not your usual combination. Is there a history of combining African cultures and Celtic cultures?
Only recently, really.
What we did,
It
Joe
all
and I,
started at the Maryland Renaissance Festival. That's right.
after a long day of playing, each in our own little corners of the fair, we got together at the end of the day and just relaxed and recharged playing bagpipes and drums.
People danced around, took their clothes off. It was great.
Well, now I noticed that it raises the question: what do you wear under your kilt?
Nothing.
Okay.
Oh, good job.
All right.
Make sure they get that on camera. Huh?
Seriously though, bagpipes are usually accompanied by some form of percussion, but this is not the usual. What would they usually be?
Use snare drums.
Scottish snare drummers, but they are in a union and they charge a lot. They had to cut down.
Okay. And you can get djembe and doumbek players.
I have a dozen.
Yeah.
A lot of little people, very few people know that the bagpipe actually started out in the Middle East, and it's made from African blackwood, and the drums come from Africa. You know, so
which are also made of a hard wood.
It's a circular thing.
It's truly an amazing sound. I know that the times we've played around with it at the Renaissance Festival, people literally stop in their tracks, and they don't run screaming. They
stop.
It's an amazing thing.
And they go, "What's going on?" And they usually stick around until we're done, and then they wander off and say, "Well, that was pretty good."
It's a great thing. What was the tune that you first played?
Well, that was the march called the Earl of Mansfield, followed by a strathspey called Gilly Callum, which is the Scottish sword dance.
Can you give us another tune?
Yep, sure will. The Green Hills of Tyrol.
Take it away. This is amazing. This is an amazing thing. There's no other band like this, correct?
Not that we know of.
Boy, it's...
We don't get out much, but...
The energy here in the studio is amazing. I mean, when you guys get going, it just... The whole room fills up. Those of you at home watching on TV, you can now adjust the level of your volume back to normal again. Not a band for the squeamish.
Definitely not a band for the squeamish.
Okay.
Or young at heart.
Right.
No, for the young at heart.
There was a Highlander in a hospital once, actually, and he was really dying, and the doctor said, "Would you like anything?" And he said, "Well, I'd like to have some pipes." And it was amazing. He had an amazing recovery. Then the doctor was later telling some people about this, and he said, "It was great. The guy recovered, but 2 English guys died."
What do you guys do when you're... Well, let me introduce the members of the band. This is Bob Mitchell. It's Joe Morales, Jen, Tom, and Bridget.
And they have last names.
And they have, give them the last names, will you? Jen Pepe,
Tom Barrett, and Bridget Martin.
You guys met out in the lobby, right? Okay. What do you do for day jobs?
Well, all of us have different professional jobs. Tom's an archaeologist, and Jen is a massage therapist. Bridget's a banker, believe it or not. I'm a school teacher, and Joe...
I happen to work at this wonderful store called the House of Musical Traditions in Takoma Park.
Where they sell?
Djembes and bagpipes.
Shameless again. Shameless again.
What we like to do, Dave, is get out on the street and play for folk around the square, so to speak, and draw a big crowd and talk to them and let them, and show what's going on. We also play dinner engagements, and we play at a lot of conventions and a lot of ethnic festivals.
Recording coming out?
We're working on one. It'll be a while. We've got some other instrumentation we're trying to incorporate right now with some strings and things.
It's a great sound. It's a great sound.
Thanks.
Seriously, there really is nothing like this.
That's a lot of fun.
What are you going to take us out with?
We're going to play a tune. I'm going to play a very quick little march, and then we're going to play a hornpipe and jig set.
Okay. Take it away, Bagpipes and Beyond.
Thank you.
Coming up, adults who say sports isn't just kid stuff.
Hi, and welcome to Body and Soul. It's good to be back. We'll be dealing in this show with those large kids, sometimes known as adults, who gather together in groups to play sports or join exercise classes and the like. Now, besides a great exposition of fun, what's really going on here? Female bonding, male bonding, the building of community? Well, all of the above, probably. Is this a good thing? Of course, wouldn't you say? But here's another question. What's going to happen when we get too old for full court basketball? Well, stick around and we'll cogitate on all of this with Betsy Taylor and Denny May, two consummate sports activists and also wife and husband. Hi and welcome, guys. Now, let's make one thing clear. You guys are also involved in church activities, school, PTA, volunteer for a lot of civic duties, but you love sports, and you both play basketball like crazy, right? So what's the attraction? I mean, why?
Well, it's probably the obvious. To some extent, I mean, I think we do it partially because we're sitting at our computer terminals during the day at our desks, and to get out there on the court and sweat is just, it's great exercise. It helps you sleep at night. It helps you get rid of the stress, and it's just fun.
And well, and it's and there's competition, right?
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's important. But it's a different kind of competition than we ordinarily face in our our work days, our work lives, because well, at least for me, this one has the team component, which is really really important to me. I mean, I like to compete, but I don't like to compete in individual sports as much as team sports. And we teach our kids all this stuff, but a lot of us don't really get a chance to practice it. We do, or I do, or we do, and it's a tremendous feeling to work with a group toward this achievable end. That's another thing, probably the reason we do it, because a lot of our work involves things that don't really result in anything.
You never see the result.
Right. Well, that's probably another show.
Yeah.
But there is a distinction here, right? Because we're talking about, you guys play basketball, full court basketball. There are volleyball games around town. I play in one of those myself. There's softball. There's pickup soccer on Saturday morning. But these are all team activities. Right? I mean, there's also tennis and so forth,
right.
which is also another show. But so the team component, which actually sort of slides into this a little more philosophical part of the show, the building of community. I mean, the idea that this is a group of folks who gather together all the time.
Yeah.
How long, in your
Well-
case, Denny, this is the same group that's been coming together for quite a while, right?
Well, I have two groups actually, one in the Takoma community and one in the DC community. The DC group's been playing together for 20 years, and the Takoma group has been together for about 5 years. And the community aspect of the Takoma game is really quite striking in many different ways. One thing, for example, my kids often go with me to the event, and the kids of the other adults come too, and the kids have gotten to know each other and developed a network of friends. And the men I play with have also become quite friendly over the years, and we even had a weekend this past summer where we called it Beyond Basketball, where we invited our families to. We found a place that in Charlottesville that we could rent for the weekend, and we went up there with our families, wives, kids, everybody. Men played basketball, everybody else had fun. It was a wonderful thing, and I think we're all much tighter, much closer, and that's all part of the community.
You went along?
I went along. I was a little concerned because there was a gender division here. The men were playing basketball, and I was the only woman along who could have probably been on the court with them. Although,
of course.
Briefly. But actually what we ended up doing was the women and children, of course there was a little bit of, juggling about that, but we ended up organizing all these other games. We did Capture the Flag with adults and kids. And it was just, I think we don't have enough play. I think part of what's going on is there's not enough play in society right now. We're almost forgetting how to play together in terms of song and dance and other things. And sports is one of the things that our culture has held on to that lets us just play together. And so at this Beyond Basketball, we did collective play. We also did dramatics together. We just made up skits together. And people, we're going to do it again.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is a big difference between, let's say, a PTA meeting and basketball. Actually, we have some video here that we want to show, which, talking about play, I think that's going to come up at roll in any minute now. Watch the monitor. Here it comes. So,
yeah,
you claim that the camera didn't work when Betsy's game was going on, so we have your game instead, I take it.
Yeah, I don't know if we have long enough with this to see a basket actually being made, but
but baskets do get made.
Yeah,
occasionally.
And I don't know how. There's quite an age range of folks here. You might see. We have people from their 30s to 60s playing in this game.
And you can tell the difference.
Not really.
No, not really. No?
Actually, probably the strongest player on the court is in his mid-60s. So it's pretty amazing.
And Betsy, your game is now, it was all women, and now it's turned into co-ed.
Right. And that may be a bit of a commentary. We tried to have women, and I'm in my 40s, and we were having a hard time getting enough women to come consistently. And I think part of that is, the women of my age didn't have the opportunities when they were kids the way young girls do now. I wanted to play Little League. I wanted to play in these sports that my three brothers got to play in, and I wanted to be a boy for a long time. I never had the chance. So now, I did play in high school and college, and I loved it, but it's hard to find a core group of women because they didn't have the same experience. So, so we're co-ed now,
right.
And it's worked out really well. And you were talking about community. We have the same thing. People that are playing there on the court, I see them at school from PTA. I see them sometimes at my Quaker meeting. And there are all these points of contact. Our kids come. And now we've discovered music in common. So a whole group of us now go off and play music together. So it really is about some kind of bonding that takes place.
Yeah, I think so. I wanted to work this in. As some of you know, I got sick this summer, and it's part of the reason I haven't been around. The two groups that gathered together to help out initially was my softball team and the volleyball group, which also has a bunch of guys who are in their 60s still playing. And so, to get to the original question that I was asking, is there hope for us that we'll be able to continue to do this?
Well, I think so, and I think that absolutely, I think so. I don't actually think about it from that point of view too much because we're just doing it. I'm actually kind of surprised at the number of people my age, I'm a little older than Betsy, but the number of people my age who are still playing, there's all kinds of games around. This is something that maybe people aren't aware of. There's a lot of activity, physical activity like this around, and it's possible to do it. It's possible to start it and get a game up. And
if somebody hasn't found their professional calling yet, maybe orthopedic surgery would be a good. I think we'll be financing a lot of replaced knees.
Yes, well. And there's also shuffleboard, I guess, at the very end.
We can play golf later, you know. But now it's, these team sports
There's
are nice.
something really nice about sweating, you know, and there's also something really nice about bodies touching.
Well,
you know, I mean, being able to.
Or both of you were talking about the aphrodisiac qualities, were you not?
Well, that was before the show, Howard.
There is something about working out the aggression. I think our lives are filled with stress and all the stuff. When you play ball, you have an opportunity to legally
push.
Yeah, you can bang and stuff, and it's okay. It's part of the game, and it's
well, if we had more time, we would get into the more of the physical, the pushing and shoving. Meanwhile. I'm Howard Cohen, still trying to keep body and soul together. See you next time.
That's it for the October edition. See you next month in the Takoma Coffee House.